medicinal cannabis producers globally, the TGO standard for medicinal cannabis in Australia has recently undergone some changes. And it's important to stay up to date to understand how these changes might affect your business to supply safe and effective medicines to Australia. So I've been putting out the written newsletter last year, and over the December break and January leave as well, I thought it might be easier maybe just to start doing some creative videos, start to kind of share my screen while doing some research, show some other videos or maybe some other interesting topics that I thought would be best to maybe be conveyed in some videos. So kind of with my limited time and very basic editing skills, I'm going to try and start to put some videos together on a bi-weekly basis where we will do a little dive into some of the topics that we have already started to discuss, and maybe start to have more of a bit of an interactive session as well, with having some conversations with some relevant stakeholders in the industry. So on the 6th of December 2022, just recent, the therapeutic goods standard for medicinal cannabis was updated, and it was updated to provide further clarifications to some of the GMP requirements that were outlined in the compilation number 2, which was released on the 28th of March. So I kind of have them open here, and I want to just go through some of the key kind of points that I noted which were differences, and kind of take it like that. So the key points to unpack in today's discussion will be point number 1. There were some GMP recognitions. So there were some new GMP recognitions. Bulk imported cannabis flower or extracts that can be used now as starter materials. Packaging as well as child-resistant enclosures, and confirmation on some microbiological specifications for inhalation and oral formats. So an interesting point that I noted in this updated order was the GMP recognitions. So one noticeable change which was included in this version was that the New Zealand Medicines and Medical Devices Safety Authority, MedSafe, and the New Zealand Code of Good Manufacturing Practice for manufacturing and distribution of therapeutic goods was included in this order. On point number 2, which I believe is the most important point, or the most noticeable change and inclusion, which was mentioned in the 28th of March compilation number 2, and has now been kind of confirmed once again in compilation number 3. The manufacturing quality. So a specific change here that has been included in the manufacturing quality is for the use of starter materials in the manufacture of another cannabis product, such as compounding or dispensing. So basically what it's saying is that in this order, it is saying that GMP, pharmaceutical GMP, which are examples, PICS GMP guidelines, EU GMP, South African GMP, FDA GMP, the Canadian GMP, as well as the New Zealand GMP. This sort of quality will be required for cannabis starter materials. Previously, before this, it was acceptable for compounding pharmacies to use starter materials that were, let's say, non-GMP. Big one was obviously bulk cannabis, and it's very clear in this order that from the 1st of July 2023 this will not be allowed. A little bit of context. So up until now, from my experience as a GMP manufacturer, so this is the South African context. South African cultivators have been sending bulk dried cannabis under the SAHPRA GACP and SAHPRA GMP written confirmation. But something that I've picked up on is that this written confirmation that has been issued by SAHPRA has been written in accordance with Article 46B2B of the Directive 2001/83/EC. So most of the South African cultivators actually have this combination of all licenses. However, the new TGO093 in compilation number 3 actually states that the requirements are actually for Article 47 and not 46, meaning that South African cultivators, most of them, will have to have their South African GMP quite soon, such as the manufacturing GMP license that we actually have. So that means, from drying, basically, they would have to undergo a full pharmaceutical GMP inspection by SAPRA, which would be the same GMP certificate that actually we get. So, my main interest is, how is this going to be enforced in Australia? Because I think this will affect quite a lot of South African cultivators, and it will require them to, let's say, add more to their current existing quality management systems. And I'm sure most of them already know this, hopefully, but this is why I'm doing this video. And they will have to undergo that pharmaceutical GMP inspection. And another interesting thing that I might kind of query is, are the kind of strategy going to be, let's send as much product as possible into Australia so that they can sell this, because that is a little note that is mentioned in the order, which I'll get to a little bit later. So another point is kind of with regards to this Canadian produced product. Since Canada obviously has adult use and has for some time, and has quite an established mature market from cultivation to production and innovation and those sorts of developments, this has led to this good production practice, this GPP, which the Health Canada has issued, which is kind of the, let's say, manufacturing authorization for recreational or adult use. And as we know, a lot of this product, which is GPP in final dosage or bulk from Canada, has entered into Australia. But moving forward now, it seems that this GPP license is not going to be allowed anymore unless there are other licenses included. So basically, if you have a GPP license, which is the adult use one, I assume, you would also have to provide evidence of a written confirmation of an EU GMP audit. So you have to have an EU GMP or a TGA GMP, which means that the TGA would have to come to Canada and perform a regulatory audit. The one way around that is actually to get this drug establishment license from Health Canada. That seems to be like almost the pharmaceutical GMP regulation. So those are some interesting things that I've kind of picked up, but some of the market dynamics here in terms of what might shift, how's it going to be enforced, what really will happen from the 1st of July, and what are the strategies of distributors and kind of pharmacies and clinics of those sorts. Because the one thing about the Canadian produced product is it is really cheap product. When it's produced under GPP, we've, from my personal experience, it is quite cheap. And it seems relatively unsustainable to produce pharmaceuticals at those prices, knowing how cheap can you go. So obviously their oversupply has created this kind of market bottoming of the pricing, but that is a lot of adult use. The third point that was there, wasn't really a big change. It was a bit of more of an emphasis with some kind of references to go do some research on, was the child-resistant packaging. Some notes here were kind of clarified in terms of where does child-resistant packaging, where is it needed? There are some exclusions on certain dosage formats, but more specifically providing emphasis that, for example, we do not have to put bulk compounding bottles into child-resistant packaging. So that was just point number 3. Not too much of a change there. It's more just understanding what needs to be done, understanding on the label if it's a final dosage form or if it's plant material or this, what you need to actually put on the label there from an active perspective, as well as what is it. Plant material gets a certain range, extracts get a certain range, tablets get a certain range. They also reference the TG093, the TG095, which is specifically to child-resistant packaging. Highly recommend a read on this, specifically in section 7. Some really great simplified bullet point information on this. So point number 4 was to do with the microbiological attributes. So at the end of the order, you will find, I think it's the last section, or it is the last section, and in there you will see the microbiological attributes, and they make references to the USP, the British Pharmacopoeia, as well as the European Pharmacopoeia. And they kind of, give the other tests in an appendix right at the end of the order, and they, basically just provided some TAMC and TYMC CFU per gram or mil kind of clarifications. So these, kind of new requirements that I'm looking at over here, specifically sections of the manufacturing quality, that I mentioned about the bulk flour, the starter materials, child-resistant packaging, labels, and microbiological attributes. Those are where we saw a lot of changes, and it's basically, in summary, from the 1st of July 2023, these will begin to be enforced. I don't know how they will be enforced, but this is something to be ready for if you are producing medicinal cannabis for Australia. Yeah, so appreciate your time in listening to today's kind of comparing of the TG093 Medicinal Standard for Australia, and looking forward to what will happen on the 1st of July. I think there's some interesting things that will happen, and hopefully I can get better at this and kind of get a little bit more interesting, and hope that you guys like this. If not, I'll write a newsletter.